Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope that you guys are safe and I hope that you guys are doing good. So, today's episode is more of a chill one, more like a wind down, me letting out my thoughts type of thing. I started recording this episode previously and I just felt like it was out of order, out of place. I deleted it, starting over today. This is a topic that is really relevant in my life with the things that I do, and of course, with the podcast. And it's like something that we talk about briefly quite often, but actually hacking your intention and talking about it and the whole little battle that you go through with, your own self sometimes to ask yourself, am I being sincere? Am I not? And this and that. It's like it's a really big thing. And so I wanted to talk about that on here. So this episode will be an unfiltered discussion on intention. I'm going to share with you guys, my take and just everything in regards to it. I also want to share advice for those that are starting social media or something like that, or they want to start their own podcast, they want to start their own type of dawah thing, or they're just on a path of seeking more knowledge. You don't necessarily have to be on social media. Maybe you're just learning more knowledge for you, for your community, to share with your friends, or maybe you don't even have anyone to share it with. You're just learning it for yourself, right? And being a student of knowledge and whatnot. And so I just wanted to share advice for really anyone. I think any Muslim can benefit from this, but I definitely do want to dedicate a little portion and talk about, those specific things. So we're going to start off with a beautiful, beautiful hadith. This is number one in Sahih al-Bukhari, as far as I'm aware in my book. And I bet a lot of you have heard this one. Ready? I heard Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. The reward of deeds depends upon the intention, and every person will get the reward according to what he has intended. So whoever immigrated for worldly benefits, or for a woman to marry, his immigration was for what he immigrated for. So this hadith has literally been my ride or die, honestly. It has just been my reliance on lots of things, because I feel like, as you do dawah and as you try your best to spread the deen, but also with sincerity, I feel like at one point or another, it's really, really easy to get your intention corrupted. And this can start off at a very, very earlier on age. And I'm going to tell y'all my experience and just talk about that real quick. So the story behind all of this is actually quite a miracle. Growing up in Brooklyn, New York, I had a group of friends, and of course, I had my best friend and another group of friends, and just like a little, people that went to the same school as me, same grade as me, and they were Muslims. And there was this one girl in particular that I was friends with, but when I moved and like when I was about to move, just everything, like I lost contact, fell off with so many people because I was deleting my socials, making new socials, isolating. Like I was just going through like such a rough phase, and I lost contact with a lot of people. One day I see one of my mutual friends post like an Instagram post, and it was like a Quran ayah or something like that. It was like some type of Islamic post, right? And I always see this certain individual users share this person's post quite a lot. And I was like, who is this? Who is their page? I want to click it. So I clicked the post to see the person's page. And I come across this page, and it's like a Quran page, and it shares like facts and like hadiths and this and just amazing Islamic content, right? Fell in love with it. I followed it. And then I liked their content. I was just liking. And at this time, I did have the Islamic Feelings Instagram account, but it was just like a wallpaper type of thing. I used to just post wallpapers and quotes on there. And I love this person's account. So I started liking their pictures and comments and whatnot. And I went in the comments, just like, whatever. Like I was just obsessed. While I was doing that, I get a DM from the person. And this girl goes, "Hey, I am, so and so." And I was like, "Hold on, this is that same friend that was super on her deen when I used to live in Brooklyn, New York, and then we both fell off. And I deleted socials, and I was just, going through everything and new phones and whatnot and whatnot. And so this is her." And so I was like, "Oh my God, hey." And I started DMing with her. At first, I didn't think anything of it. I was like, okay, she's just like an old friend. When me and her lived in Brooklyn, New York, it was like we were close, but we weren't like severely close. Like we never really had discussions too deeply about stuff. You know what I'm saying? We would touch base on things, but it was more like a school thing. So it was really sweet, but we always were like together about stuff. And me and her DMing, and I was like, "Oh my God, hey, like it's Hera, like hey, I moved, and like this what happened." And she's like, "Okay, give me your number." So we exchanged numbers, whatnot, talking on Instagram, talking on number, talking on Instagram, talking on number, whatnot. So mashallah, she is super knowledgeable. May Allah bless her with more, may Allah give her more, mashallah, mashallah, Gotta get that out the way. But she knew what she was talking about, right? And I started to ask her, like, hey, where'd you learn this? How are you doing this? Like, tell me everything. Like, she, like, all the time, like, like she just was on it. And so she started telling me, like, oh, I read this person's stuff, see it, I do this, I do that, I do that, send me PDFs, links, whatnot. Then me and her both started reading together, and it was kind of like, hey, I read page up to like page 10, did you read up to page 10? I read up to page 10. And it was like, we both started studying, and it became this thing where it was like we studied to share it with one another, and it was the most sweetest thing ever. And so sometimes what we would do is like we would study different juzes, so she can tell me one juz and I can tell her a different one, or like I would read a certain book and she would read the other one that I wanted to read, so that way like we could hear the summaries from one another. Like, it was just amazing, and it was a blessing from God, mashallah. And that's how it kind of began. And in that journey, she put me on to that. I mean, of course, it's by God's grace, but like seeing her really inspired me. And I was like, I have got to get my life together and start acting like that. I got to get my life together and start like, like being on that too. So I started, and I was like asking her for book recommendations. We read the series together, videos, just everything. And so we were doing that consecutively for a very, very long time. And alhamdulillah, till this day, we still do. We get a little bit busy in school, but she's still there, and it's such a blessing. And I know she's probably listening to this, and I'm gonna tell her to listen to this because she better. But anyway, it was the sweetest thing ever, right? So as time went on, me and her constantly just sharing knowledge. I was like, okay, let's make a TikTok. We made a TikTok together, but we both got too busy to keep up with it. And it was like, I didn't want to put the burden on her or on me. And it was like, you know what I'm saying? But like, we both started sharing knowledge. And whether that was, on our private accounts, shared, personal, whatever, we were just sharing. And it was so beautiful. And it was literally like bliss. We had no one viewing our content except like me and her and like maybe 8 other people. And it was just beautiful. Like, it was just, oh my God, look, I'm gonna post this, and look, I got 10 likes, and those 10 likes will inshallah benefit me on the day of judgment because 10 people saw this, and that's such a big deal. And like, like we're spreading our dawah. And it was wholesome. And I still to an extent think like that. I'm like, if even 2 people see it, I'm gonna get a reward. That's all that matters. So, and if it helps someone, that's great. So it was kind of like that, and gassing each other up, like, your work is going great, asking each other, should we post it, should we not? And it was just amazing. And eventually, then she starts to focus more on her Instagram and her TikTok, and I started to make my own Instagram and TikTok and my podcast and whatnot. And we still support each other's work and everything. Like, we literally talk every day. There's nothing about that. But it was like, then it was kind of like our own schedule type of thing, because with school and graduating, we both got kind of busy of doing like shared accounts and stuff, because that is a responsibility. So anyway, in that journey and in that little segment of me learning about Islam and learning to seek knowledge, that's a big thing. I was like, how exactly do you seek knowledge? Because there's so much to learn about. And I started off by learning about, prophet stories, peace be upon all of them. Then like Quran related stuff, watching just videos, and like I came to hadiths eventually. So it was like a journey on my own that I picked whatever interested me. I never forced myself to research or look into something that I did not find interesting. That was my rule of thumb, and I really agree with that. If you feel like something in Islam is a little bit complicated, or you may not understand it, or you may feel like it's a big topic for you, start with what interests you. Okay? It's not, if you don't have to necessarily, go learn about the finances of Islam if you know what I'm saying? If that's not what interests you, you start off at one place when you're beginning, and maybe learn about the prophets, peace be upon all them, maybe learn about like a specific ayah of the Quran. Like, you start where you feel like it's right, and you just go from there, right? So that was what I did, and I felt like that was one of the best things that could be done, because when you force yourself to follow what you don't want to study and just ignore what you do want to learn, I feel like it makes you become really bored, and it makes you think like, oh, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do. So I always made sure to keep it interesting and study whatever I wanted. And as the knowledge increases, it's very, very dangerous in a manner that you want to keep your intention clean. You do. Even if you're a student of knowledge and you're not on social media, you're not posting, you want to keep your intention clean. You never want to gain too much knowledge and think, oh, well, I'm better than everyone else. I'm superior. I am going to go to Jannah for those. I am amazing. Like that. Gotta be careful. You do not want to get arrogant. You definitely don't want to get on a pedestal, because it's Allah that blesses us with the knowledge. So that was one thing that started to come up, where if I ever felt like getting knowledge made me more bitter, I was like, you got to take a step back because you're doing something wrong. You know what I'm saying? Seeking knowledge and learning more about the deen should make you a lot more kinder and a lot more understanding. And of course, you should, talk gently to people about the rights and wrongs and whatnot, but like it shouldn't make you a better individual. And that was something that I had to constantly remind myself. I was like, stop. Don't think that you're better than anyone. Don't ever think you're arrogant than anyone. And that was like something I told myself, even if I wasn't displaying those emotions. It was something I had to constantly remind myself, because I kept telling myself, like, I'm studying, I'm reading, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But what if it all goes to waste? Because I make my intention so bad. As time went on and my podcast and everything else took off, it was a dream. It was perfect. And it was everything that I can ask for and more, because it was like, I'm doing what I love, I'm sharing what I love, and I love what I do. You know what I'm saying? Like that type of thing. And obviously, my topics are a wide range of things. I talk about stuff that is like not just, the seers and stuff like that, but also like how to handle certain situations Islamically, how to view other people, how to handle yourself, how to handle certain bad relationships and whatnot. And because I feel like that's an important topic, because, as Muslims, we do have to figure out that the hard way, maybe some people the hard way, some people the easy way, that you cannot be acting like everyone else. You can't treat, people roughly or harshly or rudely like everyone else and think that that's okay. We don't do that as Muslims, right? So I like to talk about those things. And then honestly, eventually, I feel like this sounds a little bit over the head, but like I'm saying, it's an unfiltered discussion, so I'm gonna be honest with you guys. One of the big things that a lot of people actually avoid doing is reading their DMs. And that's because when you read DMs and people are constantly complimenting you and praising you, or thinking that, you're super pious, and ask you questions about like faith, you're like, huh? You're like, what? Why are you like? You're kind of feeling like, what are these people seeing in me that I'm not seeing in myself? And one of the big reminders that I always had to tell myself was like, the only reason why people like me is because of the way that God has concealed my bad, the way that God has concealed my sins. Otherwise, there's nothing special to me. And that was something that I had to tell myself a lot. And as time went on, I answered DMs and I read what people had to say about me, and made me really happy. And I was like, okay, great. Like, like inshallah, like God's accepting it too. But you have to remember, validation from people and validation from like knowing that God's accepting your work, that is to an extent, like, God, if he loves you, he makes the people love you. That's true to an extent, some people say, but like you also kind of have to be mindful to not become a people pleaser. That is the big thing. When you become a people pleaser, you do everything else for people. You do everything for people to see. You do goodness for people to be like, wow, that was so great. She's amazing. It gets up to you. Because then at one point, no matter how many times people compliment you and say, oh, that's great, that's great, that's great, you did good, you're so knowledgeable, it never feels like it hit, or it never feels like you did enough, because you're not doing it for the right reasons. Because now it's all about making the people view me as a pious person, and not about making sure that God knows that I'm trying my best to spread the dawah with sincerity. And going into the discussion of advice that I'd give to really anyone that's trying to start social media or start podcasts, I have lots of people who tell me that, oh, I'm going to start a podcast. What advice do you give? What mic do you use? Hey, girl, I got bigger news to tell you besides my mic. You have got to stay grounded, bro. You really do. Do not ever, ever let yourself get comfortable becoming money hungry. Do not ever let yourself become comfortable becoming number hungry. Don't. Let me tell you something. Whether, when you start social media, the only way you're going to go is up. That's the only place you're going to go. Now, once you're up, you can fall down and things can happen, and that's another thing. But when you start, the only place that you're going to go is up. You're going to seek attraction, seek followers, whatnot. The only place you're going to go is up. But do not ever let go of your ground. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with being like, okay, I'm proud that I did good in this thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But when it gets to your head and it becomes an arrogant thing, it's not good. One of the things for me that I really, really, really was about when I first started my podcast was like, no one knew. No one. It was just my friends. And even then, like, I didn't tell all my friends. I think like to like 2 people, right? The friend that I originally told y'all about, and then of course my best friend. And it was a very silent hush move. I never posted about it on my Instagram. I never posted about it anywhere. It was just like a TikTok post thing. It was never really much on my Instagram because I didn't want people knowing. And one of the big things I was scared of was like my family finding out, or like, my extended friends finding out. And it was just something that I felt nervous about. And it isn't that they wouldn't support me. It was just, I did not want to, I didn't want anyone knowing. You know what I'm saying? When you just want to talk and have no one know. And obviously, as time went on, like I told my mom, which alhamdulillah went well. And I'm grateful that she took it well. I mean, she's been kind about it. I tell her that I am I have a podcast. And, you know, she was like, so what do you talk about? And I was like, and the dean, and I didn't know what to say. And so I have made her like listen to some of it before. Um, and she's like, ask them if they want to hear me on a podcast episode. And I'm like, Mom, I don't know. Do they, Mom? I'm like, my audience is young. I don't know if they want to hear you on a podcast. But my mom, she's like super into studying the deen and whatnot, mashallah. But she's like, ask them if they want to hop on, if they want me to hop on an episode. I'm like, Mom, I'll hop you on an episode even if they don't want to hear it. But like, you know, so that went okay. And then when I told my best friend, she knew the whole time, which was, like I told her a little bit late when I first started out, but I did tell her eventually, like, a couple months in, and that went fine. She laughed at me out of love, not in a mean way. And she was like, oh my God, like that's kind of, it was low-key crazy. And then I told her, and eventually it was like, family abroad. They found out through Instagram, or if my mom told them, and talking about it has always been awkward because it's kind of like, what am I supposed to tell you? Like when you're like, hey, like, how's the podcast? Tell us how you started. Dude, I don't know what to say. I was depressed. Like, it's one of those really, really awkward discussions that I feel like I still don't know how to answer when, like, the aunties ask me about the podcast, or they ask me, like, oh, like, Beta, what are you doing? Or, like, explain to me like what happens after you post the podcast, like what do you do, like it's so awkward. And so like a discussion that I don't think I can ever learn to get good at. Like I'm literally red just talking about this right now because it's that awkward. And it's like something that I am silent around. And then I had some people here that knew about my podcast through Instagram, but then when they saw it like on TikTok, on like, or like if other people posted on TikTok, then it was like they kind of knew, and then they were like, oh, that's your podcast. And I was like, is it? Oh crap, that's me. And it's one of those things that it's awkward every time. And I don't like to say that because people are like, oh, you're just trying to act humble. No, it's awkward. It's awkward, bro. Like it's awkward. It's awkward for people that have grew up seeing you in a diaper, have grew up just with you or your family or your extended family. Like they're really sweet and supportive about it, alhamdulillah. But like it's so awkward to it's so awkward to face it because it's like, what am I supposed to say? And I know that lots of people, whenever they start social media dawah work, they actually have to hide it from their family and their extended family, which alhamdulillah I'm actually blessed about, because like just everyone is always super super kind about whatever I post, and they like it, encouragement, whatnot, and it's such a blessing. So in that way, I'm very very blessed to say that I've never had that problem where, like, how there's like shady people or shady folks that are trying to get you down, nothing like that, alhamdulillah. So but it's still something awkward. And so I feel like when you first start the podcast, you need to know, like, are you willing to tell people about this, or is this something that you want to keep to yourself as a small thing? And I wanted it to be like a private thing, kind of, but at the same time my intention was I wasn't ready. Like I didn't know if I wanted to keep it like a private thing or like tell people about it or whatnot, and like if I just wanted to create like a brand new Instagram and like never tell anyone a soul. But then at the same time I was like, like, might as well just tell them, like, why be so secretive, whatnot. So you need to know, like, who are you doing this for? What are you doing it for? If you start doing it because I want my family, my community to see, oh, look how pious I am, look at how credited I am, and then, you want to be careful about that. Because the thing about doing dawah and the thing about doing whatever you do is, like, if you even help one person, bro, that's a good hasanat on your end. Now imagine if you help 10 people, and those 10 people help another 10 people from something that you taught them. And that was my mindset. My mindset was, if you can do the small things right, you can do the big things right. And if I change one person's life, or I give one person some advice that'll help them, they, inshallah, most likely will pass it on to someone else, who will pass it on to someone else, who will pass it on to another person, which means in my lifetime, I'll at least be able to help a good amount of people, even if it's through a chain, right? So if I help 10 people, 40 people, those 40 people pass it on to someone else, it's like a train of blessings, right? And so that was the mindset. And I was like, I can scoop some good deeds because I really do need them. And I pray that God is pleased with me, right? Because that is how it all started out, wishing and hoping that God will be pleased with me. And, they always say good deeds erase bad ones. So I wanted to find a place where I can do good deeds and spread good deeds and whatnot, right? To my best extent. Now, the problem is when a lot of people are like, hey, I want to make a podcast. I want to talk. Nothing wrong with that. I will tell you. If you ask me, hey, how do I do it? I'll tell you. but you have got to be careful. You really do. I feel like people undermine this because if I undermined it too when I began. I was kind of like, okay, yeah, I'll just keep my attention clean. I just won't let the numbers get to me. I just won't let people's compliments get to me. It's not that big of a deal. Oh no, it gets to you. It gets to you. Let me tell you, it gets to you. At one point or another, you start to think like, okay, like people like me, so that means I'm doing something right. I'm doing great. Well, listen, there are celebrities out there that do the wrong thing and people like them. So don't make your entire validation based off people like me. Make it also based off of actually all of it. Look at how Allah is with it. Like, how, do you think Allah would be pleased with what you're doing? That is my 2 cents. Make it all about how would Allah, judge this action. Would Allah like me sitting here doing dawah? Would that be something I'd get good deeds out of? Would he like that? Or am I just people pleasing? That is something you need to ask yourself every day. When people undermine this, people always say, oh, well, it won't get to me, I won't reveal my identity. That doesn't matter. It does not matter. No one has seen my face a day in my podcast career except like a couple girls. And I'm telling you that identity is a whole other thing. It catches up to you. You have got to ground yourself and be careful about what you're talking about and who you're doing it for. Do everything that you do for the sake of Allah being pleased with you, and inshallah, you won't be disappointed. Now, there's a lot of days where you will get number crazy, where you will see the way that other people's reels pop off. And you'll be like, oh, well, I have to post reels so I can get lots of views, so I can get lots of followers. And you see how in that train, it's like, oh, yeah, so my dawah can grow and, Allah will be pleased with me. It kind of comes at the end. And some people don't think that there's anything wrong with that thinking. I, however, anytime I start to think like that, and I'm like, oh, I got to post this reel, and this reel will do good, and so this people can see, and I'm like, hold on. Because now it's giving social media tactic. It's giving social media strategy. It's giving social media business type of thing. This is dawah. What are you doing? You know what I'm saying? And that was like a public thing. There's nothing wrong with, trying to seek traction and trying to get your word spread. But if all you ever get consumed about is the numbers. Oh, I have 20 people follow me this morning. Let's up it up to 50. Let me go search up how, I can like do this, do that. And it's like, you get caught up in a cycle of wanting people to follow you and wanting people to see your work and whatnot, which again, there's nothing wrong with trying to get your work spread, right? But when you become number hungry and you're more like, oh, I have 2.4K, so I gotta hit 2.5K by the end of this week. I can't afford not hitting 2.5K. I have to hit 10K by the end of the year. That's it. It's like, why do you want to hit 10K? Do you want to hit 10K so you can say you have 10K, or do you want to hit 10K so you can say that, oh, I have helped and hopefully impacted 10K people with my dawah, right? Because let's talk social media wise. I have how many followers on Instagram? 2.4K? Not that many, right? 2.4K, I think, or even 3, I don't know, right? I have 2,000 something followers on social media, on Instagram. Is that a lot? If me and you are talking social media perspective? No, it's not. And I know that sounds a little bit mean, but look, if I have 2.4K followers on Instagram, is that a lot in compared to a social media face? No. Because on social media, there's people with 10K, 100K, 250 plus K, like there's a lot. But now let's say I changed my perspective and I said that hopefully, inshallah, if God wills, 2.4K people have benefited from what I post or what I say, or even if they don't listen to my podcast, maybe I posted a tweet or a quote on Instagram that someone liked and it really helped their heart, and maybe they screenshotted it and they're like, oh, I'm gonna follow this page. Maybe they never visited my page after that. But you're not getting my point. That one little post that I posted, which I probably never thought about much, but it impacted some person and changed some person's life, and maybe some person's wallpaper, or maybe they shared it with a friend that might have needed help, or maybe they saved it in their gallery and they read it every morning. You don't know that. So now put that in 2.4K perspective. That means a lot to me. That's why I avoid ever thinking, well, I need to have, 13K like this person, then I'm going to feel like I counted as something. Well, I don't care. If 2 people like my post, then that means 2 people probably benefited from it, hopefully. And maybe they screenshot it, maybe they found it useful. Then it's good deeds. Now, let's say you are someone that's trying to spread dawah. You only have 1K. You only have 200 followers. You only have 50 followers. What's wrong with that? For the longest time in a lot of my social media pages, I only had like 50 followers, 25 sometimes, majority of the time. I didn't have a lot. Okay? So does that mean that I think, well, I only have 50, that's such a limited impact? No. 50 people, bro. 50 people. Imagine every single time that you post, 50 people see your work, yo. 50 people. You post 4 times a day, let's just say. 3 times a day, 2 times a day, 1 time a week. 50 people. And you're going to get good hasanat on your end for that. If they benefit from it, they like it. And even if no one benefits from it, let's refer back to that hadith where it says that your actions are judged by your intention. So if you made the intention that Allah, I ask you to make this post help 50 people or to change the lives of millions, if God wills that, that's exactly what's going to happen, right? So it's not always reflected through the numbers, through the likes, through the comments. Sometimes it's also reflected through your intention. And if you make the intention that, God, I know that I only have like 25 handful of followers, but I want this post to be the thing that gets me to jump for those. Why not? Make a dua for it. And that is what I'm talking about. This is the truth about intention. Your social media fan base, your social media base period, you're following, whether it's on TikTok, Instagram, whatnot, and it doesn't matter if you have 500 plus K or whatever you may be at. You can post something, and if you have the worst intentions and you're trying to money loot, number loot, just you're so, you're being a hypocrite. May Allah protect us, because we can all, at one point turn like that, or we're like that. May Allah protect us from that. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, but like, if you are a hypocrite and you are, spreading a completely different message and you fall completely different and you feel no guilt in your heart, because there are times that sometimes we tell people to do something and we struggle to do it with ourselves, but we acknowledge that we're struggling, right? We acknowledge that we're not, completely acting like it doesn't exist. We acknowledge that, hey, this is my weak point, but let me tell people also to make sure that they fix up on this, right? So if you could have 500 plus K followers, and if you mean nothing that you're saying, okay, what's that 500K? What does that got to do with anything? You get my point? So it is not about your public view. It's not about how many people see your work. It's not about your insights. It's about your intention. And a lot of times in my life, I felt very, very down, because I was like, well, it seems like no one's getting my work. TikTok's shooting me down from here. TikTok's doing this to me. TikTok's trying to shoot me down from this angle. They don't like when I posted this. So now I did this and da-da-da. And then, Instagram's acting up like this and then this and then that. I'm like, who cares? Who cares? Now it's like I changed my mindset. I always try to keep this mindset. I'm like, this is a hobby. I do this as a hobby. Okay? And I'm going to keep it like that. I'm not going to force myself to feel like I need to, account to a different amount of numbers, or that I wish that I could have, like, this many followers, and I'm gonna go do whatever I can to get them. No, you know what I'm saying? Because, like, of course there's nothing wrong with saying that, oh, I hope my dawah spreads, I hope that I can reach a good amount of numbers, a good amount of fame. There's nothing wrong with that, but you have to remember that also comes with a responsibility. Lots of people want to get famous, they want to have good fame, but they don't realize the responsibility that comes with that. And I'm not trying to say that, like, I'm famous. I'm not. I'm a normal person. I'm just telling you the honest 2 cents that I've seen from people that have millions and millions and millions of followers that have talked about this stuff. You want to get famous, but you don't want to have the responsibility and the accountability behind it. You just want to get the people pleasing, and it's not going to work. It's not going to help you. It's going to throw you in a ditch, because you're going to live your entire life for other people. Now, sometimes, even if you do keep your intention clean, you could still get hated on and crapped on. It's very normal. It happens a lot more often than people think. We just don't give attention to it, so a lot of people don't know that it exists. But it happens, whether it's through a random person online or within your community or someone from your past. Getting hated on is very normal. And I feel like one of the important things to remember is that as human beings, you do not have to agree or like or even love someone or what they're saying. But with or without religion, you should be respecting someone. I think that that's basic human decency. You don't have to like what I'm saying. You don't have to love me. You don't have to like my message. I don't care. You can block me. But the least you can do as a human being is respect me, the same way that I expect to respect you. And honestly, at the end of the day, like, you're going to meet lots of people in your life that you'll disagree with. But again, like, even outside of religion, you can respect someone kindly, and, you don't have to be rude about it. It's not that deep. It really isn't. So even if you are getting hated on for speaking on haqq and truth, don't let go of your ground. People's anger roots from jealousy or hatred or societal talk or whatever, however they perceive you, it doesn't matter. When you talk haqq, lots of people are not going to like what you're going to say. They're going to say that you are, rude, disrespectful, oppressive, a hater, ignorant, negative, whatever. Let them say it. Because when God is your witness and God is the one that judges, you will be fine. And that is the mentality I try to keep majority of all the time, because ultimately giving dawah and also being a woman means that you get crapped on quite often. Unfortunately, alhamdulillah, my experience hasn't been too bad, but there's a lot of women that I see on TikTok that are very, very active, giving dawah, spreading the deen, helping others, and they get crapped on a lot. They get crapped on a lot, only because they say the truth. Sometimes y'all don't like to hear the truth. Y'all be saying you want truthful people and honest people around you, but then you don't want to hear the truth. I've noticed that with a lot of people. They like to sit here and be, I'm an honest person. I keep only good, real friends. Da-da-da. When someone tells you that something you're doing is haram or wrong, or maybe you should fix this, you get really defensive and passive aggressive, which makes me question, do you think that what you're doing is wrong? Is that why you're getting passive aggressive? You don't get defensive or what's not wrong. So why? Why? Keep that in mind. Ultimately, remember that intention is something that fluctuates. You will feel on top of the world one day and then sink at the bottom the other day. But remember that as long as you remember that it's not necessarily about how things play out, it's about the intention. Keep that grounded. I have had lots of experiences where I went in with really good intention and came back completely heartbroken because situations did not go the way that I wanted them to go, or I ended up not, getting cracked on. Like, it's fine. It happens. But at the end of the day, when you make the sincere intention that I'm going to go do dawah, or I'm going to upload this for the sake of helping people, or I'm going to go tell this person that what they're doing is haram for the sake of helping people, do it for Allah. And Allah will inshallah reward you. Whether or not the people like what you say or they don't like what you say, don't let their compliments or the negativity get to you. I always tell myself that. I always ask Allah to never allow the negativity of people to overpower me, nor the compliments, because both of them are harmful. The negativity can soak you in a way that you start to think that you're the worst person in the world and you're not capable of doing crap. And the positivity can make you become so arrogant on top of the head and make you become prideful. You have to remember that your true success and your true reward comes from Allah, not from people, not from how people perceive you, not from how proud people are of you, from Allah. And when you do dawah, keep that in your mind, always, forever. Make that your intention, whether it's through uploading, talking, within your friends, and your everyday day-to-day life. Maybe you're not someone that's posting and whatnot. Keep a pure intention in whatever you do, and the little things in your life can be an act of worship. The little things in your life can be an act of love, and it can be an act of gratitude towards yourself, towards your, akhirah, and inshallah, even more towards others. And ultimately, remember that in the long run, even if you feel like what you've done has not been effective, remember that it's not about always how you feel. The way that you view yourself does not necessarily define the way that God sees you. If you feel like, oh, I suck, my dawah sucks, none of this is good enough, that's your opinions. That's not how God sees it. God can see your work and be like, wow, that's amazing. I love this, whatnot, and be rewarding you endless for it, right? But like you, on the other hand, maybe your emotions are gaslighting you, or maybe even shaitan's giving you waswasa that, oh, like this is horrible, just stop as a whole. And that's sometimes what shaitan does, is he installs waswasa in you that you have to do it perfect or you don't do it at all. And this is really bad because instead of fulfilling an obligation, Islamic one, you end up fulfilling a compulsion of your own personal one. So try to be mindful of that. I have lots of those days where I'm like, this sucks, I hate this, I don't like this, delete, or I'm never proud of my work or anything like that. And I ultimately try not to put too much mind towards it, because at the end of the day, the waswasa comes from shaitan, and we have to remember that what does shaitan want? He doesn't want you to spread God's word. He does not want you to do dawah. So in the long run, remember that no matter what you do, it's not always about how things work out. It's also about what you do to begin them. You can come with the intention of doing something really nice and then have people literally hate on you for it, right? So the way that people perceive you and your actions is another thing, but your intention between you and Allah is another thing. So value the one of you in between Allah. That is what will get you the farthest in life. I hope that this discussion was a little bit interesting, because I know lots of people don't talk about intention, and I know that a lot of people do think that people on social media are just 100% super perfect, pious, no corruption intention, nothing, like everything's just perfect all the time. That's definitely not the case. Remember that the most pious people, everyone, we all struggle with intention and sincerity. And if you constantly question your intention, take it as a good thing. Don't let that, make you not want to spread dawah and do anything like that as a whole. Take it as a good thing that you're well aware and you're well cautious about what you do. I hope this episode helped you guys. Assalamu alaikum.